Hey there Wargamers, Austin here with Death Ray Designs, and today we are going to be talking about our brand new line of adhesive stencils called Death Masks. Now, one of the key features of these is that they work so very easily on curved surfaces because they actually stick down and you don't have to use your fingers to hold them down in all the little cracks and crevices and creases while you're airbrushing, meaning that you're going to be airbrushing one-handed. So, as our example today, we're going to be painting an Eldar jet bike hood with some of our Harlequin stencils, and you can get some really cool effects in just a couple of minutes. So here's our Eldar jet bike hood, and it's primed gray currently, but we're going to go over it with a base coat of black. I've just got a little bit of Minotaur Raven black here. We don't have to do anything necessarily super fancy here. We're just trying to get everything blacked out for this first step because we want a lot of contrast in this. We're going to do a couple of passes with the stencil, and then we're going to use a ghost tint or a candy color to retint the whole thing to give us a really cool, easy effect. So while that's drying, let's go ahead and prep our first stencil that we're going to use. So maybe a little bit difficult to see what's going on in the stencil right now on camera. The light catches it, you can see some of the cut marks. So we're going to pick one of these Harlequin halftone stencils, meaning that it starts large on one end and fades to a different size at the end. So we're just going to go ahead and peel that up. Okay, so that gives you a pretty good idea of what it is that we're working with here. Now, you might also notice that there's some that still are stuck to the sheet here. We're going to grab one of our wax paper worksheets. Drop that down. Okay, so we can see there's actually a fair number of these that are still stuck in here. I've got an actual weeding tool. Weeding is the act of removing stuff that you don't want in there. So you can either come through and just sort of pick these things out one by one, and for really delicate stuff, that's actually preferred, but we've got a whole bunch of stuff, and I don't think that that we're going to have a whole lot of issue with the areas around these. They're nice and thick and they're not going to tear real easy. So what we're going to do is take a little bit of masking tape here, and because the adhesive bond between the tape and the top of the stencil is going to be greater than the tape or the stencil and the wax paper, we can probably just put this right down on top of it. I'm just going to burnish it down with my finger here, make sure we get good contact, and then I'm going to peel this back up. Okay. So you can see we got a fair number of them now. We've just got a couple left, so we can just repeat the process again, focusing on the areas that were giving us trouble before. And I also find that if you can, instead of pulling it straight back like this, if you can do more of a lifting action, you'll get more of them, just because it's less likely to just peel straight off of the top. It actually lifts some of it. And there we go. We got all but just a couple there. We can either pick those out or we can keep on using the tape. So before we actually implement the stencil, I'm going to do one more thing to this. We're going to do a really small gray transition on the back side of this. We're just using a little bit of, was this badger fur? This is badger fur. It doesn't have to be much here. And you can skip this part entirely if you don't care about this, but I think this will add just a little something there. So just got a little bit of a gray transition there. That's all we're looking for. So now let's grab our stencil. And as you can see, since we're all done weeding it, you got big diamonds at the bottom, small diamonds at the top. So we're gonna have these more focused towards the front of the vehicle than the back. So it's gonna get smaller and smaller as it goes towards the back. So let's find where we wanna start. For this, I'm going to recommend that we just find one of these diamonds, kind of just get it generally close. We're going to line up that front diamond there, the very tip of that. And then we're going to make sure that that row of diamonds goes straight up the middle. Okay, I'm going to reach over and sort of start pressing that down. Okay, we've got it generally locked in place now. And all we're going to do, starting at the middle, we're going to work our way out towards the edge. You may find that with a lot of like really tight curves, you may want to get some sort of tool to press in here, like maybe just the back end of a paintbrush. And now we're going to flip over to this side. Keep pressing it down. Okay, so places you want to be aware of are stuff like this. You can see here it's really dark. You can see the paint through this area that you've burnished down. You don't have a lot of good adhesion right around that diamond. So you just want to make sure to press in firmly around it. Make sure that it's actually set down. So right down here at the end, I don't think I want to have the edge right beneath that diamond showing, so we're just going to stick a little piece of tape over that just to sort of finish that edge off. So our next color is just going to be some white. And we're just going to focus mostly at the tip and sort of fade back as we go. We're just putting down a little bit at a time here. I'm not trying to flood anything. Focusing mostly at the end and just feathering back. So while the diamonds are getting smaller and fading away, we're also going to sort of fade the paint back too. So let's peel it off and see what we've got so far. Okay, I'm going to drop this right back onto our wax worksheet. And we've got this. It's looking really nice and crisp. We got our transition going from really bright to fading away at the back. And once this dries, we're going to replace the stencil again for a second pass with another color. That layer dry, and now it's time to reapply our stencil. Just pull it back off of the sheet. So for this one, we're actually gonna sit this down one row. We want the smaller of the diamonds to be the beginning of the next row, and we're going to try to line this up so that the spacing around those diamonds is even in comparison to the previous spray. So we're just going to sort of lightly tack this down first and see where that leaves us. So you can see we've got these diamonds, the previous diamonds lined up generally in the middle of each of the diamonds from the next sort of phase of the stencil here. You can kind of tug this around till it gets into the right location for you. So we're following pretty much the same process here as we did before. We're just going to press this down into all the little curves and inlets of this thing. And because we're fading out stuff towards the back, it doesn't really matter quite as much. You'll still probably get a pretty decent spray through as long as you're not, spraying right up on it and getting paint flooding underneath. If you're sitting back and letting the air have a longer distance to travel, or the paint a longer distance to travel before it hits the thing, not so much that it's drying mid-air, but so you don't have the force of that air ramming it up and under the stencil. That's what you want. So we've got a little more white loaded up in our airbrush. And we're going to start off by doing pretty much the same thing again. So let's begin. So we've got our white down now for the second round. And what we're going to do is come back in and add a really bright color over that white right down here at the end. We've got this super wild pink color. This is the Gleaming Pink from Montana. This is one of their paint pen refill paints. If you've seen many of our tutorials in the past, you know I absolutely love those colors. We don't have to use a ton of it here. We're just hitting the top edge. We've got this super bright pink on here, and we're gonna be on to the next step. So let's peel this up and see how we did. Okay, right on. Let's get that back on the worksheet over there. So we're just checking this out to make sure we don't have any weird issues before we move on to the candy coat phase, and I think we're looking okay. So for our next and ostensibly final step, we're going to use some candy coat or ghost tint on this to shift all those colors towards the blue, meaning that the whites will become very blue and the pinks will become a very bright purple. For this step, we're going to use ghost tint plasma fluid. This is one of my favorite of the ghost tints, second only to ghost tint brown, just because it is so useful and ubiquitous. So we've got a little bit loaded up here. And if you've never used candy coats or ghost tints before, the interesting thing about them is that they're basically transparent colors. So you can still see all the details and things below them. They won't muddy them up, but they'll just recolor them. So let's see how this looks. Okay, so let that dry just a second, blow a little air over it, and we're going to apply just a little more. Make sure we get a good even coating. Right now I'm just blowing air through the airbrush. I'm not still applying paint. So there we are. We've got our super teal color, and then we've got this nice complementary purple color in between. Looks like I may have made that a bit more subtle than I intended, but it's still a pretty cool effect, I think. So after that last shot, we went ahead and put some matte varnish on there. I think that it helps dull down a lot of that shine. You can see the color difference a little bit easier, and I think that looked pretty good. This could easily be the end of the line for this piece. You could just say, yep, there it is. It goes onto the jet bike now and onto the table. And I think that would be a very reasonable looking model. Now granted, we painted the rest of the jet bike too, but it doesn't have to be the end of the line though. You could do all kinds of edge highlights, more shadows or fades, or even stack more stencils on top of this. There's tons of different options. We have lots and lots of Harlequin stencil types. We've got a ton of other interesting patterns that would look good on this model and pretty much any model. I'd encourage you to go check out the rest of the stencils over at deathraydesigns.com. Just select Death Mask in the drop-down menu and it'll show you all of the fun and interesting stencils we've got there, and hopefully it'll spur some creativity in you and you'll have a cool project rolling out in no time. If you like this video, you enjoyed what we're doing here, definitely hit that like button, subscribe, do all the YouTube things or all the Facebook things or wherever it is that you're seeing this. Just thanks for coming and checking this out and letting us talk about our cool new product. Until next time, happy wargaming.